What we're doing today, guys, is I want to continue where we left off. So last lesson, we tried something a little bit different, where you guys listened to that podcast, which was pretty interesting actually, and we're taking notes while it was going. So those who are away, I sent this to you. So I'll show you. That was strange. So I went through it obviously while it was playing and found quite a lot of interesting stuff. So let's see if I can just play this now and you can see some of my notes. Who picked out some interesting things from that podcast? Let's go one at a time, please. Speak it out. Aaron.
There was like a mini ice age.
There was a mini ice age. It was called the mini ice age actually. What else?
Little Ice Age.
Oh, yeah, Little Ice Age. Yeah.
That the Christians killed a heap of Jews because they thought the Jews were poisoning the water.
Yes! Now, why did they think they were poisoning the water, which I thought was really cool? Tess. I mean, not the killing of the Jews, but Tess.
Because all the Christians lived in town and interacted with each other, so when one got sick, they
Oh,
all
that's right.
and other Jews lived out of town and kind of by themselves, so
Yes.
they didn't really interact with other people.
So it was a really, so obviously this is fast forwarding now, so I can get really quick. So that was the thing, that was one of the most interesting things I found from that is, yes, so we had the Christians and we had the Jewish people, okay, and what the Christians decided to do, because they're such nice folks, is they thought they would burn all the Jewish people. And that was because they thought that the Jewish people were, that was weird. They thought the Jewish people were causing this sickness, this plague. They thought they were causing it. And the reason why was ridiculously simple for us, okay? But back then, not so much. So what happened was all the Christians lived in one big area. They lived in town, okay? The Christians lived together in town, and the Jewish people didn't really live in town. They lived away up on the hill, okay? They lived away from town, and they didn't really interact with the Christians, okay? And these Christians were obviously interacting with other people and tradesmen and all this kind of stuff. And of course, one thing that we found out, was that the plague was spread through obviously people getting in contact with each other and having it. So what was happening was all these Christian people were hanging out with each other and getting each other sick. And the Jews who didn't come down to town weren't sick, okay? They were fine. But of course, in their mind, back then, the Christians were like, oh, they're obviously poisoning our water, let's burn them all alive. And that's what they did. So, a bit of a misunderstanding there. What other things, there we go there. What other things did we get from that little podcast that was interesting? Hudson. Yes. Yes, that was a good one. We'll touch on that. So, what I got as well from that was, yes, they're kind of thinking now that it's been talked about, and you'll see in the book that I've made as well, is a lot of people thought that the Black Death was the bubonic plague, okay? But they're thinking now that it possibly wasn't. It could have been something else completely different, and we have no idea what it was, which is scary, okay? That's actually quite scary, because bubonic plague, we know about that, we know how to cure that, we know how to save ourselves from that. But if this Black Death wasn't that plague, we're kind of screwed because we don't know about it, we don't know what caused it, okay? We don't really know how it worked. They talk about it being spread by fleas, but then they start saying, hey, wouldn't all the rats be dead in the winter? How can that go? How can the plague survive the winter? But it did. So the scary end of that was that, we may not actually really know what this plague was. So if it comes back, let's say they dig up some old body, that's been chucked in ice and they crack him open and he explodes. That's really gross. It could come back and we could be kind of stuffed. But that's okay, we'll talk about that later actually. Anything else? Yes, Maddie.
Apparently it used to be called the Big Death.
Yes! Yes, okay, so remember what we said, we've talked about this a few times in history where we give names to stuff after the fact, okay? Like, what was one of the things we said that historians gave a name to and it wasn't technically called that plague?
It was the feudal system.
Yes, that was probably one of them. We called it that. The Black Death is another one. So, what happened, and we'll talk about this in a second, there was quite a few plagues that happened. It was quite popular to have a plague. So, there were a few. And so what they've decided to do, to make it easier to remember, which one killed all these people, that's so confusing, they called this one, later on, we called it the Black Death. Okay? Mainly because, does anyone have a guess why it was called the Black Death? It's really gross. Yes?
Didn't they call it the Big Death and then wasn't it a Latin translation? Got messed up.
Yeah, but why would they have called it the Black Death? Fred?
Because you got black spots.
Yeah, it was really gross. There's black spots everywhere. Okay, so that's why they called it the Black Death, so we could kind of differentiate that and all the other fun plagues that we had. One more and we'll move on. Yes?
It may have been early during warfare.
Do you want to expand on that?
For like people were known to like throw like death.
Okay, yeah. So people started to use it. That's how it started to spread a little bit as well. People were chucking dead bodies all over the shop. It's pretty gross. It was a pretty gross time. Alright, and finally, before we move on, how many people died from this sucker?
A third of the world's population.
Third of the world. There wasn't much population back then, but a lot of it died off. And a couple of facts that I got from there as well, which I thought were pretty cool, is they actually could test the levels of CO2. This is really weird. They could test the levels of CO2 in the air, right? And what they found out was, before the Black Death, there was a certain amount of CO2 in the air, okay? And then when the Black Death happened, that changed completely because they could actually see that there were more trees because there were so many dead people, alright? There was no one farming, there was no one cutting down trees. So there was this actual effect to the earth by having this, okay? We changed everything. Anyway, that's what we're doing. So today we can do a couple of things and I'll ask you first on how we want to do this. So what I'm going to do, we're going to have a look at the book that I've got together. Now, this is up to you, obviously. We can do this two ways. You have this book, you have this resource. So you can either, whatever works best for you, you can stay here and we can have a little chat, we do a little lively discussion. Or if you want, if it's better for you, I mean, you're more than welcome to read through this yourself in your own kind of time. What works best for everyone?
Yeah.
Alright, so it's your call, but basically what we'll be going through, alright, we'll be going through the first section here. I'll be talking about it, I'll be talking about a bit of the science, I'll be showing you some graphs, and what we're going to do today, so what I'm going to call our learning and teaching today, because we've got less time today, is we're going to have these 3 critical thinking questions completed today. That's what I want. That's the outcome for today, is to get these completed. Okay? And I've just sent you an email earlier, obviously, that has a link to the blog where I want you to post these questions. I also want you to put them into your iTunes View course notes. So, like I said, you can go at your own pace if you want to and go through this, or we can go through it together. I think for today we'll go through it together. In general, yeah. But of course, it's up to you. Alright, it's up to you. Now, also, what's going to be up to you as well is you obviously get these books quite a few days in advance. So, your call on this. If you are home and you want to really engage in this topic, you're more than welcome to go through this stuff at home and answer these questions at home if you want to. That's cool. Okay, and then when you come to class, you're pretty much freed up here. Alright, you can spend a bit of time focusing more in depth on some of these topics, maybe looking at something else. It's up to you. Okay, so we go back to having that, you guys being in charge. I've gone through your surveys, obviously, which are really informative. We'll be making some changes for next term. So it's up to you on how we do this kind of stuff. Alright, so let's get into it. Alright, let's get into it. Because I know not all of you learn well by having some person in front of you talking and then you guys talking. I know that's not how everyone works. So again, if you want to go on your own pace, that's fine right now. You can do that. You can chuck your headphones and you can go at your own pace. But everyone needs to have those 3 questions done by today. So if anyone wants to head out, that's probably not the best day for it. It'll get better in term 4 when it's summer. If anyone wants to head out and do it in their own time, that's fine. But you'll still have to do those 3 questions. Alright, so let's start. What we're going to be looking at is this sexy thing here. Alright, so we've got in the 14th century, which was the 1300s, we've got this Black Death that we talked about. Alright, and we said how it was in Asia, Africa, and Europe. And the reason why obviously it was in those 2 continents is because they all kind of traveled. Sorry? She's got like a little cap on. It looks like she's wearing a melon.
We're just going now.
Okay, so ladies, before you leave then, you need to make sure you go through here. I would watch that video there. Watch the little interactive keynote I've got. And you need to answer those 3 questions there. Okay, on the blog, done, detailed. That's what your goal is for today. Ladies, doing that as well? Okay, those questions need to be done. If it's not, then we won't be doing this again. Alright, awesome. Have fun. So, there we go. See how this works out really well? I've got the smaller class, it's awesome. Okay, let's try, let's go back. So, You lads are doing as well? Alright, so you know what our outcome is for today?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay. Remember. Alright, so let's have a look at this. Now, I don't know if you saw
I love these guys.
Sophie, remember our outcome today vote needs to be done. If you saw Sophie Cox in Medieval Days, she was wearing this outfit here. Okay, now this is from another plague. This is from the 17th and 18th century. I'm showing you this now because we're going to get to it. But we're going all the way back to the 1300s. That's where we're looking. The Black Death. That's our first big plague. All right, because there's so much fun to talk about. Now we'll talk about this a little bit later. But does anyone want to have a guess as to why he's wearing this kind of outfit?
Actually, no.
Aaron.
They've got like, isn't it? It's like a mask thing. They've got like rodents. Yeah, they've got like stuff in there that like filters out all the stuff.
Yeah.
Because they used to think smells made them have the plague.
Yes.
They used to think it was the fog.
They put herbs
Is it the fog?
inside the
Yeah.
nose things.
Yes. Okay. So this is just really setting the scene. Okay. This little chap here. So what they thought back then. This is the 17th century, mind you. This isn't that far away. This is only 300 odd years. That's not a big number when you think about it. What these guys used to think was that the plague was caused by smell. Right? If something smelt plaguey, you would get the plague. Okay? It smelled bad. So what they would do is these doctors would go around and they would put on these masks. Alright, and they would, like Aaron said, they would have like really nice smelling scents in there, and they would walk around and go, oh, if I smell nice stuff, I won't smell plaguey, and get the plague. Okay, it didn't really work, unfortunately, most of these guys died. So that's kind of one of the crazy, I guess, things that they thought. Now, again, it's going to sound really nuts what these guys did, but that is because they didn't know any better. They were quite ignorant, alright, because they didn't have, like, we have science right now, you know. You didn't have Google. You could go, what causes this? And you Google it and that's your answer. They didn't have that. They had no idea. So this is what they were coming up with. All right, it smells. But we'll get into some really weird stuff that they did. So this is a kind of a quick intro of why the plague worked so well. The plague is pretty awesome. So for hundreds of thousands of years, all right, we basically as human beings, we lived together in tribes. That's how we rolled. Okay. Since we started banging stuff with rocks, we all lived in these little tribes, okay, generally small groups, okay? So each tribe wandered the landscape hunting and gathering, okay? And basically everyone lived in these little groups by themselves and that's it. No one kind of interacted beyond that, okay? We hunted food, and then we moved on. We didn't settle, we didn't have houses, okay? We were just kind of little nomads. Like if you see any doco and you see a bunch of apes wandering around,
No classrooms.
thank you. You see a bunch of apes wandering around. Okay, that's kind of what we did. We just wandered around from place to place, ate food, moved on. Alright? So they're little tribes. Now, there was very little contact, which is good. Alright? Having little contact means if one tribe is sick, it's not really going to spread to another tribe. That tribe will just die. The whole tribe will die out. No more tribe. Sickness goes away. Okay, that's what kind of happened. But what happened is we started moving away from that system, all right? And also around that time, we had these, I've got a good word of the day for you, Asho. Here we go. Virulent, all right? What that is an extremely severe disease. It's a super powerful disease. So what's happening is these organisms, these diseases started appearing, okay? And they started to mutate. Alright, when you start getting diseases and other people get diseases and you hang out together, alright, these diseases have a little disease party and they start to mutate and they get worse, okay? And then they start in animal life and then if we have contact with that animal, they'll jump from an animal to a person and now we've got that disease, okay? And so that's what's happening with these diseases. And so, what would happen is they would jump from an animal to a human and they would get a member of the tribe, okay, and anyone that interacted with that member of the tribe, they would probably all get it and die. Okay, but again, we're not really hanging out a long time ago. So, like I said, that tribe would die out. So, that's kind of what happened, and that's how it worked. That's why we never had these huge plagues. But, if we fast forward, we fast forward all the way to now, okay, oh sorry, no, that's probably a bit too much of a fast forward. Let's fast forward to the 1300s, alright, you've got these things called settlements. Okay, so people started to settle down, and we talked about this in geography. They used to start to settle down next to rivers, Okay, and why would they settle down next to rivers? Test. Water, okay, we've got a food source. They would start to settle down, they would cultivate the land, they would raise livestock, and people stopped moving around, okay, and started to get cities. So big areas of people that need to hang out, alright, and so they grew into cities, which then became empires. And then you have Rome, for instance, which is gigantic. Alright, so this was awesome for microorganisms. They thought, oh, this is so sweet, okay, because what they could do is they could spread really, really quickly and infect more people, because that's what they want to do. Microorganisms, their whole job is to spread as much as possible. That's what they do. Okay, that's their job. Alright? Like, we want to do that as well. People want to spread as much as possible. We all want to have little baby Aarons. That's our job. As people, as human beings, we're all about staying alive and making more of us. Okay, that's what we do. Mate, that's what we do. And that's what these microorganisms wanted to do as well. So they're cool. They're like, oh yes, this is awesome, everyone's together. And then what happened is these trade routes started happening. So we talked about trade routes before. So not only were they really super excited because they could infect, say, all of Rome, but now Rome was starting to deal with Africa. And they were starting to deal with Europe because we had people that were travelling along trading food and trading supplies. So they're starting to spread now. So everyone's getting excited, other than the people dying. And so what would happen is you would get basically these devastating, another word of the day?
Pestilence.
Yes, a pestilence. It's a very religious word, pestilence. Okay, but basically it means a fatal disease. Okay, like we've got here the bubonic plague. So this big, huge disease. So these started to happen in, say, Africa, and then it would come to say the Greeks and the Romans because it spread through trade routes. All right, so devastating population, destroying armies and changing the course of history. So we'll talk about in a second too. A plague like this can change history. It can change exactly like what we are right now is completely changed from a plague. It could wipe out an entire country. All right, it could wipe out armies that could have taken over huge chunks of the world. No more army, not going to happen. So let's go to where we're looking at now. So the deadliest of all arrived when the trade routes opened to the east being
Asia.
Okay? So in the 13th century, trade between Europe and China took off. So it started to happen there. Before that, China was kind of by itself, Europe was kind of by itself, we never really talked. Now, around the 13th century, people started venturing into China, and they're like, oh man, China has really cool stuff. Okay, this is before they started making PlayStations. They had like silks, okay, and they had some really, really cool stuff you couldn't get anywhere else. So they went to China to get it, and basically, the Mongols back then, do you guys talk about the Mongols in any part in Year 7?
Yeah, a little bit.
Alright, these Mongols they pretty much run. You might even talk about it next. No, you don't talk about it. I will talk about it.
We need to talk about it.
A little bit. So they basically opened up these policies and said, right, people can come into China, they can get our silks, they can get perfumes, all this kind of stuff, and spices from India. So this is what's happening. Now, this is what happened, okay? 13th century. Now, I'll show you this video, because it's a little bit technical, but it, actually, should I show you the technical one first, or the simple one first? Alright, I'll show you the simple one first, and then I'll show you the technical one. Alright.
Bring out your debts! Bring out your debts!
Here, will you take my butt, will ya?
Plague, was it?
Yeah, you will give him a proper burial, won't ya?
Of course I will. I'll chuck him in a pit with all the others.
Oh, good, yeah, it's what he would have wanted. It's worrying though, isn't it, this plague thing, you know? I mean, where's it come from?
Well,
Glad you asked me that. It starts with a little flea
Which it might not have.
that jumps upon a rat. It bites the rat and gives it germs, and for the rat that's that. Then the flea it looks for somewhere else to find its food. It hops on you and me and starts to suck our blood. First, you realize it took a root, and then you start to swell. Then you start to spit some blood, and then you really smell. Then you know it's time to bring you know the along comes Mr. Death and swishes you to hell, God. There's lots of cures to help you if you have the cash. Kill the village cats and dogs and burn them all to ash. Sit down in a sewer so the smell drives plague away.
They did that.
Place chicken bottoms on your spots, then you'll be okay. First, you And then you start to swell. And then you start to speak some blood. And then you really tell. And you know it's time to be ill. You know well. But along comes this young man. And switches you feel hell. Play those little children, even more than months with hats. Prosthetics because no wicked kids are acting bad. Half the people on the earth are simply blown away. So, Mr. Deadbeat will be really busy day.
Alright, you can watch the rest of that later. So, a couple of things out of that one, before we get to the technical one.
Sat in sewers.
So, a few things they were doing that were silly. They sat in sewers, okay, again, going back to that smell. They thought, alright, here we go. The flowers aren't working. If we surround ourselves with crap, literally, and it stinks really, really bad, then that smell is going to be more stinky than the plaguey smell, and we won't get the plague. So they used to do that, just hang out in sewers. They got the plague, they died. So that didn't work. Another thing they were doing there, you were seeing they were doing Ring Around the Rosie. Did you notice them doing that? Okay, does anyone know the connection there? Yes, yeah.
Isn't they did that in front of like a tree, like and I've heard of this before.
Basically,
I've heard something about it, but I forgot.
That's okay.
It's to do with like
it's the plague.
Yeah, it is.
So if you look at the words Ring Around the Rosie, pocket full of posy.
And when it says bless you, means like
You're dead. Yeah. So they go Ring Around the Rosie. I haven't sung it in like 20 years.
Yeah.
Pocket full of posy. Let's not sing it now. Alright, so a pocket full of posy, so they've got that smelling stuff that smells nice, pocket full of posy, teach you all down, and then you dig. Okay, that's where that song came from. We'll look at that a bit more in a second. So they said that, now this is a good one that I like.
And they teach you about dying. Just like from the plague. Like
so no, this is a really good one. So did you hear how they said, alright, one of the guys said that the kids die more than the adults, which is true. More children die than adults, obviously. Now, I'll tell you what they thought, and then you can tell me what you think by being smart young people. So this is what they thought back then. Kids were dying, more kids than adults died. Okay? Their reason, kids are naughty. So kids are naughty, they're naughtier than adults, hence God wasn't happy he killed all the kids. That's why they thought more kids than adults died. Now, you guys, without using any science at all, just common sense, why do you think more kids die than adults? Alicia?
It's lower. I mean,
Of course, that is as simple as that. Children aren't as strong as adults. So, of course, if there's a disease, Bo really wants to say something.
Well, there's more children than adults as well.
Ooh, oh, yeah, that wasn't probably the technical reason. But yeah, but thank you. But yes, children are weaker than adults. So if there's a disease that kills a lot of people, it's going to kill more kids, isn't it? Alright, no, it's because you're naughty. Alright, so that's what kind of happened. Alright, let me show you, I'm going to skip past this because you can obviously read this yourself. I'm going to show you a slightly technical one, but it explains it really, really well, and how it spread, essentially. Alright, let's go into great topic. Oh, yeah, obviously, these videos are in your iTunes U course as well, and like we did with the podcast, you can take notes when you watch these videos and stuff like that, but I'll show you a quickie now. It's actually pretty,
Full screen. Let's go say full screen.
That's it.
It was the invention of the microscope in 1683, which allowed Dutchman Anthony van Leeuwenhoek to discover microbes. Using his own home-made microscopes, the so-called father of microbiology was the first to observe and describe single-celled organisms,
So it's very complicated,
which he
but
originally called animalcules.
I'll stop it soon.
Today, less than 5% of all known microbes cause disease, but back in the 14th century, the bacterium microbe that causes bubonic plague, or the Black Death as it was also known,
Or maybe not.
became the deadliest microbe of them all.
Oh, look at that scary font and blood. You know something bad's happening now.
Black Death is spread by the microbe Yersinia pestis, invading and growing inside
Or maybe not.
rats, fleas, cats, dogs, farm animals, and humans. It thrives at around 37 degrees Celsius, the exact temperature of a healthy human body.
What a coincidence.
The way in which Black Death works is rather gruesome.
We'll see
The
that in a second.
microorganisms divide inside the flea. It causes a blockage in the stomach of the
Gross.
flea, and then the flea gets hungry, and the starving flea goes after a human being for a drink of blood. And in the process of trying to drink the blood, it regurgitates the microbes into the bloodstream of the unfortunate Black Death victim.
Alright, so just because I want to, that's really cool what it does.
Tries to suck the blood.
No, this is what microorganisms do, and this is where microorganisms are awesome. Okay? What a microorganism can do, like this, it can change the behaviour of a creature. Alright, now, get your head around this, okay? So in the simplest, I'll explain one that's disgusting, but in the simplest fact, what this microorganism does, it goes to a flea and infects the flea, okay? And it makes the flea hungry because it blocks its stomach. So now it's made the flea hungry, and now the flea goes, oh, I need to get some blood, I'm going to go to a person and and drink its blood, and by doing that, I've infected that person. But what the organism has now done, it's now spread. So, yes?
The Last of Us much?
No. Oh, kind of. So what this organism has done is it's changed the behaviour of a flea to make it hungry, so then it would then infect someone else and spread the disease. How awesome is that? Now, there are a lot more of these. There's one disease, I don't know the exact name, it's really gross, that will actually... No, I'll talk about it later.
No, talk about it now.
Alright, so there's this one disease, I'll get the facts later, that what it does is it makes... it gets into a spider, and it makes the spider be more... what's the word?
Aggressive.
No, not aggressive, more risk-taking, okay, and run around so it can get eaten by a bird, okay, and then it spreads that disease to the bird.
Oh.
So it changes the behaviour of that spider to then get infected by a bird, okay? And there's a whole stack more of those. There's ones where it changes the behaviour of animals so they lay eggs in a certain brain of another animal and then it spreads. It's really weird.
I think that's what you're talking about with spiders. It's called cordyceps. It happens in ants and stuff as well.
Yeah,
and it controls the ant to go to a place it normally wouldn't. It leaves the trail. Like goes on somewhere high that's good for fungi to grow.
Yep.
Then it kills the ant and then grows its fungi out for birds to eat.
How good is that? So that's awesome. Where did you pick that from?
Vsauce inside.
Really?
Yeah.
Science! Look at that! We're looking to science now. Speaking of organisms that change people's behaviour, the Sims. Wasn't it? Oh, Alan's got a whole stack.
He's not here.
Yeah, locked up in the other office next door. The thing I'll be able to help you out.
He hasn't got a key.
So they change the behaviour of a creature to do something that it normally would, Steph, just so it can spread. That's the only reason it's doing it, so it can spread more. It's freaking cool. One more and then I want to move on because remember we have a short lesson today.
Humans do the same thing to animals.
Explain it.
We change their behaviour.
Explain more.
No matter what, we change animals' behaviour.
Oh yeah, yes, but this is different. This is different. We're making that. This is completely different. This is a genetic thing where it's making the animal want to change.
Is it sort of like mind control?
No, well, not really. I guess it is and it isn't. But what this organism is doing is it's just changing physically this creature. So I guess you could say it's mind control. I don't know. But like with the flea, all it's doing with the flea is making it hungry. And when the flea is hungry, it has to go out and feed and it spreads. Okay? Alright. It's pretty cool. One from Jesse, we'll move on.
I'm not sure if it's like a disease or something, but it's for snails. It actually completely just, it's like a bug or just some plant they eat. They like go all kooky and they start changing colour and they go up into the sky and then birds see it and they eat it. And then they poop out the disease or whatever.
Wow.
And then the next snail catches
and off you go. And so it's really weird. And what people are doing now, because we're humans and we like to play God, and that's what we do, we are now starting to genetically do this kind of stuff. Okay? They're trying to do this stuff with rabbits, for instance, to make them have no sex drive. Alright? So what they decided to do is
so smart.
there's a lot of rabbits out there. Okay, we can't kill them all, we've got too many. So what they're trying to do is make a disease, okay, that only infects rabbits genetically, and when the rabbits get this disease, they're like, no, I think I might just stay home. I'm not going to go out and fight tonight. And then when the other little rabbit kind of taps him on the shoulder, he's like, no, I'm not in the mood, I've got a headache. That's what happens, okay? So the rabbits don't want to make little baby rabbits and it stops making rabbits. So we're starting to do that. Now that's crazy risky, I reckon. I mean, can you imagine if we make this disease and it works on rabbits and the rabbits are no good headache?
They bite a human.
Exactly, and it spreads, and it mixes with the wrong kind of disease, And then we start getting it, and then everyone, you know what I mean? It's crazy stuff. But we're doing that because we're people and we like to play God. Alright.
In the victim's
So we'll do more of this.
bloodstream, the invading microbe is detected by the body's immune system, which launches white blood cells in defense. But instead of the bacterium being killed, it multiplies inside the cell. Eventually, the white blood cell dies, and the Yersinia pestis bacteria flood out stronger than before. More white blood cells attack, but now Yersinia pestis is powerful enough to paralyze them.
It starts off with a sneeze and a fever. It's a bit like flu, and perhaps the person who got it didn't think there was much wrong with them. But then you start to get these black lesions on your skin called buboes. In fact, that's how the disease gets its name, Black Death. And these buboes appear under your armpits, in your joints. It's excruciatingly painful. These people are forced into bed, and eventually these buboes begin to exude a pus from inside them. And you die a slow, excruciating death, maybe over many days, and very, very few people recovered from the disease.
So that's another thing too, is if you got the plague, you got the Black Death, you're pretty much dead. Okay, I think it was like 90% success rate. If you got it, you're dead. Okay, that's crazy. We don't even have that kind of disease, where if you get it, you're dead. Alright, so it was pretty cool.
The 14th century outbreak of the Black Death originated in Mongolia around 1330 and quickly spread along trade routes through Asia and
these are the trade routes, this is where they're
In
shopping.
just 4 years, from 1347 to 1351, the plague killed around 75 million people worldwide, including 1/3 of the entire population of Europe.
Alright, I'm going to stop it there, because I'm going to ask you a bit of a question. So all of these people got the Black Death and started dying, right? And then it started spreading up, it started going higher and higher and higher.
Like Norway and Sweden.
Yeah, now Norway and Sweden's quite cold. Now here's the thing, it started getting up there, and then it stopped. It didn't go any further. Now think back to what you heard in this video. Why? Let me just switch across because I've got a map here.
Cold.
Yes, so why would we go here, and then we start moving up to here, and it starts to stop, and we don't get it anymore? Simple, yeah?
Yeah, it's just
Too cold. Too cold. We all know it. Yeah, so, remember what we said? It loves 37 degrees. Yummy. Okay? When it gets really, really, really cold, it can't spread because it doesn't work very well in that. So again, this is where we go down these organisms being so awesome. Okay? They have their own traits. They need a certain temperature, and when all these things work together, you're all dead. So, let me move on from this so then we might be pushing time, so I might actually make this your weekly research questions. Alright, so the Black Death arrived. So, 1334, North and Eastern China, so we're in China now, this new disease appeared. Okay, we have this new disease which was highly,
virulent?
Thank you, highly infectious, and it killed 90% of the population, which is about 5 million people. That's not many, but that was 90% of the population back then, because there weren't many people back then.
How many people live in Australia?
21 million, something like that. It then made its way west, so India, Syria, and Mesopotamia, which is now called what? Anyone want to have a guess?
I have no idea. Iraq.
It's Iraq.
Wow.
Okay, so Mesopotamia, aka is now called Iraq. But you'll see that those writings a lot because that's what it was called back then. Alright, so in 1346, so a couple of years here, it struck more trading routes in Kaffa and the Crimean Peninsula of the Black Sea. So right through the empires of Islam and Christianity. Alright, so we've got all these kind of areas starting to spread now. And again, remember we had no television, we had no telephones, we had no Twitter. No one even knew this was happening. Okay? I mean, word would be getting around, but it's not like... So a couple of years has passed, and England probably haven't even heard this is going on in China. Alright? Because we haven't got that kind of contact there, which is pretty cool. Alright, blah, 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 blah. Here are the Tatars again. And then the Black Death had arrived in Europe. Okay, so now we're in Europe. Now this is where it's bad. Okay, so... if we move on, I'm just going to ignore all that kind of stuff. I'm going to ignore this. You can read that later. Okay, this talks about, this is from Giovanni Boccaccio, who is from Florence. He basically describes, do you want to read it?
Florence.
Really gross. He describes what happened. This is 1348. Alright, read it. It began with swellings in the groin and armpits, in both men and women. I can stop that.
That's Russian.
Was it? Yeah, probably was. Some of which were as big as apples, some of which were shaped like eggs. Some were small and others were large. The common people call these swellings... Ooh, ash. That's not going to find that. Gavacocoli. From these two parts of the body, the fatal Gavacocoli will begin to spread, and within a short while would appear over the entire body in various spots. The disease at this point began to take on qualities of a deadly sickness, and the body would be covered with dark and livid spots. It's gross. Which would appear in great numbers on the arms, the thighs, and other parts of the body. Some were large and widely spaced, while others were small and bunched together. And just like the Gavacocoli or the black plague earlier, these were certain infections of coming death. Basically, got all that stuff again. So, let's have a quick look at this and then we can move on. Here is the spread of the Black Death. It might be clearer in your books if you want to have a look at it. So, we're going down here. We're just starting around here. Okay, you can see where it started. Alright, so we're talking December. This is how quick it is, by the way. This is dates. So, December 1347, we started about here. Alright, then we move up. Okay, now this is June of 48. Yeah, Italy's kind of stuffed a little bit now. Alright, we're coming around here. Now again, a lot less people back then, but we're starting to get infections here. Alright, let's jump forward to December. We're starting to go through the Alps now. Alright, we're coming around here. We're just touching in England down there. Okay. It's coming across. Now we're in June, alright, so we've gone forward a few months, we're in 49 now, so it's slowly starting to come through here as well, alright. Again, more of England is starting to suffer here. Again, it wouldn't be a huge amount just yet, but
Ireland.
Boom, this is where it starts to get crazy. So December 49, alright, we've gone forward, England's stuffed. And we're moving across here as well, and then in June, all of England is now completely covered. Okay, this is spreading, this is how fast this disease is spreading. All of England is covered. We're moving up here, we're moving up north, alright, to the Baltic region. Alright.
Spain's just like chilling.
Yeah, that's why I'm still alive. We're now up here. Alright, so this is where it kind of stops. Alright, so we're talking around December of the 1950. It's not spreading any further right now.
Russia's fine.
Okay, well, Russia is cold.
Yeah.
Alright, so it's not spreading much further here. This is the Baltic.
Just chilling.
This is north of the Baltic Sea. Alright. And then basically we kind of stop now. Alright, a little bit of an outbreak here and a little bit of an outbreak here. Okay, small outbreak. But basically that's where it's set. So I've got the areas lay outside the major trade routes such as Bohemia, which is now called.
Wait.
Are you thinking of that song?
What?
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Appear to have been virtually unaffected. Overall assumptions of those who died range from a quarter to half of the population of Europe. This would place the loss between 19 and 38 million people. Alright? Because the total population of Europe was 75 million. So that's a lot of people. Alright? That's hard to recover from that. Alright? Another thing they said in that video was because so many people in England and Europe died, that genetic diversity kind of died. Okay? Yeah, because all these people died. So let's just say we'll use this room. We've got quite a lot of different diverse people in this room, yeah? Different cultures and stuff like that. Now, you're all that's left. You're all that's left, I'm afraid. So if, say, half of you die, you've lost half of that diversity. So when you guys start getting it on, alright, metaphor, then you've got less of that cultural background. And so that's why they were saying that Europe and England especially, they're all quite, perfect time to see this going. They're all quite plain, okay, in terms of genetic background. They haven't had these huge changes in different genetic backgrounds because all these people died and they had to start breeding with each other. Okay? Less people, if you have less people to hang out with.
So all the blonde people die, there's only brown.
No, but yes, in terms of a metaphor, yeah. So if everybody dies, you've got half the amount of people to hang out with, you've lost all that diversity. Okay, and that's what the plague did as well. So it almost changed the way people are today. Alright, and then there we go, back to the start. So, bye-bye, graph. Let's move across. Here we go. We have time. Now, you don't have much, so we'll probably continue these on later. So here are your 3 questions. Alright, I gave you the link to the blog. I want you to answer them on the blog. I also want you to put them in your iTunes U course notes. So do it once, copy and paste. Alright, so here are the 3 questions. Now, these are called critical thinking questions because they require you to think critically. Hence the title. So, using that map that you've got there, alright, also using the research in this book, and also using a couple of those videos if you need to, these are the 3 questions, Luke, that I want you to answer. Alright? What areas of Europe were spared the disease and why? We kind of talked about that. All right, why were these parts of Europe spared? Look at them though, don't just go because it was cold, because there are other reasons.
España.
So have a look. Exactly, why was Spain spared? It was quite close to Italy. Yeah, but it's no warmer than Italy at times.
Because Spaniards
You think about it later. Spaniards are awesome strong. And good looking. So, that's one question. Here's the next one. This is a little bit trickier. So you need to think about this. What political and social effects did the plague have upon the development of Europe? Now think about this. By political, I mean...
Church.
Exactly. Okay, we touched upon this a little bit. So this is one of those ones that you have to kind of research yourself. So...
The Pope really would have copped it.
Oh yeah. So what happened, and we'll talk about that soon, is when we go into divine intervention here. So you've got... You can read forward a bit. If you've got this all-powerful church, okay, remember the church knows everything. You look up to them, they know everything, they tell you what to do, they talk about God, if you misbehave, naughty, God will fix you up. Alright, you've got this church, and suddenly everyone's dying. So you go to church, you go, hey, Pope, why is everyone dying? And the Pope goes, oh, it's because of, and again, it was kind of in that podcast, it's because you were naughty, so stop being naughty. And so you stop being naughty. I just died, why is that? I was not naughty. I don't know, it's because of, and so they couldn't explain it. Okay? They couldn't say why all these people were dying. What are you going to start doing now? You're going to start questioning these people. You're going, hey, you're all powerful. Why can't, you've got the phone to God. Why are you doing this? And they couldn't. Okay? So that started to change. Social effects. Alright? This is another one which we'll talk about a little bit later. But if all these people are dying, no one was spared. Kings, queens, rich, poor, everyone died. Alright? So if all these people are dying, what's going to happen socially? Think about today. Okay, if a lot of people die, all these people dying, what's going to happen with jobs? People are going to have to start doing other jobs. Okay, remember all these poor peasants that all they did was work on the land? Okay, but if there's all these people dying now and there's all these jobs open, maybe they're going to go, hey, you know what? I don't have to be a peasant anymore. Maybe I will be this. Maybe I will be that because we need that. Does that kind of make sense too? So this whole social class changes. Knights are dying, barons, all these people are dying. So everyone's like, well, maybe I'll step up and do that job. Or maybe I'll try this. And that starts to change too. One more cloud gets through this. And then finally, this is another one. And this is why they're critical thinking, because these are questions which come outside of what we talked about. You need to think about it. Does that kind of make sense? All right. It's not just read page 5 and here's your answer. That's not how it works. These questions require you to think critically, to think about other stuff. Alright, so they're really, really good. So, finally, how did the spread of plague in the 1300s compare to modern infectious diseases such as AIDS or SARS? So how did the way the plague spread back then, alright, compared to how these diseases spread, these two diseases such as AIDS and SARS, how they've spread? It's very different, but it's also can be similar. Okay, so 3 questions I want you to look at. You don't have a great deal of time today, so let's just try and get one of these sorted, okay? So you can post them all when you finish all 3, all right? And we'll try that today, because I think you guys know what the bell